Hello, learners. How are you all? I hope you are doing well. Welcome to our YouTube channel, Learn to Explore. I welcome you here. And guys, please don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe to our channel. And also do share with your friends if you are liking our content so that it can reach to maximum people. So let's begin with the economics class 12 Indian economy. We have already started this chapter in earlier classes, and to get to know the full explanation of this chapter, you can watch the earlier videos. I have provided the link of playlist in the given description below, and also you can check the videos on chapter 1st and chapter 2nd of the same book. So here we will be starting with the quick revision of chapter 3. We have already covered this section, but just to connect it for you, I am taking a quick revision. Then we will move forward to the next part. So the chapter 3 of Indian economy is liberalization, privatization, and globalization and appraisal. It is talking. This chapter deals about the Indian economic situation during 1990 and afterwards. There is a consensus in the world today that economic development is not all and the GDP is not necessarily a measure of progress of a society. This was said by K.R. Narayan, former president of India, about the 5-year plans and about the economic development of India. He said there is consensus in world that GDP is not necessarily a measure of progress of society. Means if India is not in a good stage in if we measure the GDP at that time, it was talking about during 90s, but still India is progressing. He wants to convey this message. Okay, so let's moving forward. Since independence, India followed the model of mixed economy, where we took the advantages of both the system, capitalist economic system and socialist economic system. Okay, some scholars argue that this policy resulted into establishment of a variety of rules and laws which were aimed at controlling and regulating of economy. Means they argued that this system of mixed economy ended up by hampering the process of growth and development, while other group of scholars said this model helped India to develop a diversified industrial sector which produces a variety of goods and experienced sustained expansion of agricultural output which has ensured food security. Okay, so this was the viewpoint of another group. Then moving forward, in 1991, India met with an economic crisis. We have already done the background of the crisis. There was no foreign exchange left with India, even sufficient for the fortnight, and so we need to borrow. Government was forced to borrow because there was no money left even to pay its debt, and and economy was caught in a debt trap. There were many reasons of this economic crisis, including the continued spending on development programs by government. Expenditures were more than the income. Income from public sector undertaking was not very high. Foreign exchange borrowed from other countries and international institutions was spent on meeting consumption needs and to make repayment of other loans. All this together resulted in a situation of debt for the Indian government. And at that time, no country or international funder was willing to lend to India because other reasons were increasing fiscal deficit, Gulf crisis, there was situation of rise in prices, high rate of deficit financing, etc. At that time, India's situation was stagnant. India was left with very few options, and among which India has to approach IMF and World Bank to get the money. And India received the $7 billion as a loan to manage this crisis, to get out of this crisis. But these agencies gave the loan to India on some conditions. They put it some conditions like India is supposed to liberalize and open up its economy for other nations, for other countries. But so India had to agree on these conditions of World Bank and IMF, and hence India adopted the announced the upcoming the new model of economic policy, which is known as the new economic policy. This new economic policy consisted of wide-ranging economic reforms. We have already done this, so I'm taking just a quick revision. In case you want to know the full explanation of this and you need a detailed review or you want it to study it thoroughly, please watch the previous videos. I'll really suggest you to watch previous videos first, then come to this video. There I have explained this all these things in a very explained and slow manner. So it's just a revision, so I am a bit quick. Okay, so this an NEP, new economic policy, consisted of two groups. First one was stabilization measures, which were for short term and intended to correct some of the weaknesses that have developed in the balance of payment to bring inflation under control. Matlab, this policy was aimed to cut down the inflation in the country. Then the next was structural reform policies, which are long-term measures and aimed at improving the efficiency of the economy and increasing its international competitiveness by removing the rigidities in various segments of Indian economy. After this, Government of India initiated a set of policies under three heads of liberalization, privatization and globalization. So what does liberalization mean? Liberalization is generally defined as loosening of government regulations in a country to allow for private sector companies to operate business transactions with fewer restrictions. In relation to developing countries, it refers to the opening of economic borders for multinational and foreign investment. So it does mean the same for India. India was supposed to open up its economy for multinational and foreign investments. Okay, so these were the policies aimed at uh, opening up of economy. And what were the particular objectives of liberalization? Let's look at it here. Objective of liberalization were as follows: to increase competition among domestic industries, to decrease the debt burden, to increase foreign capital and capital formation and technology, to encourage export and import of goods and services, to expand the market size, and so these were the economic reforms under liberalization took place in the country. The first one was deregulation of industrial sector. Earlier there was something called license raj, and during this NEP, abolition of industrial licensing took place, except for few industries like liquor, cigarettes, defense equipment, industrial explosives, dangerous chemicals, and pharmaceuticals. Then the contraction of public sector. The number of industries reserved for public sector was reduced from 17 to 8, and only three industries are presently under public sector. They are railway, atomic energy, and defense. And if we talk about the recent changes, the government of India has also started liberalizing its railways. Okay. Then the de-reservation of production areas, expansion of production capacity, and freedom was given to import capital goods. Then the other reforms were financial sector reforms, including reforms in commercial banks, investment banks, stock exchange operations, and foreign exchange market, etc. Then tax reforms were concerned with the reforms in government taxation and public expenditure policies, which are collectively known as its fiscal policy. Since that time, there has been a continuous reduction in the taxes on individual income, as it was felt that high rates of income tax were an important reason for tax evasion. So, to solve the problem of tax evasion, the tax rate has been reducing since 1991 continuously, especially on the individual income. Then another reforms were foreign exchange reforms. including foreign reforms relating to foreign exchange and foreign trade. Then trade and investment policy reforms were aimed at dismantling of quantitative restrictions on imports and exports, reduction of tariff rates, and removal of licensing procedures for imports. Import licensing was abolished except in case of hazardous and environmentally sensitive industries. So this is all about liberalization on what were its aims, objectives, and what steps were taken under the liberalization of Indian economy. Now let's moving forward to the privatization. Privatization implies shedding of the ownership or management of a government-owned enterprise. Its purpose is, according to government, is to improve the financial discipline and facilitate modernization. It was also envisaged that private capital and managerial capabilities could be effectively utilized to improve the performance of the PSUs. So these were the aims of privatization, to increase the efficiency of the industries, of the capital and managerial capabilities, to utilize their efficiency and improve the performance of public sector undertakings, which in short we called as PSUs or PSEs, means public sector enterprises. Both are the same thing. Then the government envisaged that privatization could provide strong impetus to the inflow of FDI. Attempts have been made to improve the efficiency of PSUs by giving them autonomy in taking managerial decisions. For instance, some PSUs have been granted special status as Maharatnas, Navratnas, and Miniratnas. Okay, so there were some PSUs who were granted special status as Maharatnas, Navratnas, and Miniratnas. Now let's moving forward to the globalization. Globalization encourages foreign trade and private and institutional foreign investment. It generally means the integration of economy of a country with the world economy. Globalization is a complex phenomena as it is an outcome of the set of various policies aimed at transforming the world towards greater independence and integration. So this is the aim of globalization, is which is transforming the world towards greater interdependence and integration between the two countries or between the multinations. Okay. Then outsourcing is one of the important outcome of globalization process. In outsourcing, a company hires regular service from external sources, mostly from other countries, which was previously provided internally or from within the country. It could be legal advice, computer service, security, etc. etc. As a form of economic activity, outsourcing has been intensified in recent times because of the growth of fast modes of communication, particularly the growth of IT. Many of the services, such as voice based business processes, popularly known as BPO or call centers, record keeping, banking services, etc., are being outsourced by companies in developed countries to India, from India. Okay, so they hire the laborers from India and provide services to the foreign countries. Most multinational corporations and even small companies are outsourcing their service to India where they can be availed at a cheaper cost with reasonable degree of skill and accuracy. Many multinational corporations and small companies are outsourcing their service because from India, because there is a very low labor cost, so they can get their work done at a very cheaper rate. Okay, just with a reasonable degree of skills and accuracy available in the youth of Indian population. The low wage rates and availability of skilled manpower in India have made it a destination for global outsourcing in the post reform period. So, this is the reason why many multinational companies are looking in India to use its labor capacity for these services like BPO, call center, and outsourcing. Okay, then let's moving forward. WTO is an international organization founded in 1995 as the successor organization the General Agreement on Trade and Tariff, known as GATT. It was established in 1948 with 23 countries as the Global Trade Organization to administer all multilateral trade agreements by providing equal opportunities to all countries in the international market for trading purposes. WTO is also expected to establish a rule-based trading regime where no one creates like works like autocracy, like the master of the colony. Like earlier, Britain was the one country which colonized many of the countries in the map, in the global map. But WTO is expected to establish a rule-based trading regime in which nations cannot place arbitrary restrictions on trade. As an important member of WTO, India is also a member of WTO. So India has been in the forefront of framing fair global rules, regulations, and safeguards and advocating the interests of the developing world. India has kept its commitment towards liberalization of trade made in the WTO by removing quantitative restrictions on imports and reducing tariff rates. So, India is fulfilling its commitments towards liberalization of trade, which it made in WTO by removing quantitative restrictions on imports and reducing tariff rates. So, to fulfill its commitment to its promise to be remain up to its promise, India has been removing its restrictions on imports and tariff rates is continuously reducing. Now, let's moving forward. This is where we have to begin from today. So it's been long time we have already taken in this video just to revise. So please don't mind revising it here if you have already done the last videos, because revision makes it help you to retain it for a longer time. So keep revising and keep studying. Indian economy during reforms. Growth of an economy is measured by gross domestic product (GDP). The growth of GDP increased from 5.6% during 1980 to 1991 to 8.2% during 2007 to 12. So here is the difference you can see from 5.6% to 8.2%. The post 1991 India witnessed a rather rapid growth in GDP on a continual basis for 2 decades. The growth of GDP increased from 5.6% during 1980 to 91 to 8.2% during 7 to 12. So this was the continual basis of GDP growth for the 2 decades. So what were the main highlights of economic growth during the reforms are as follows. During the reform period, the growth of agriculture was declining. While the industrial sector reported fluctuations, the growth of service sector has gone up. This indicates that the growth is mainly driven by the growth in the service sector. Agriculture was declining while industrial sector had the fluctuated growth, means increasing, decreasing, increasing, decreasing, decreasing, increasing, but there is not a proper trend like it will go up or it will go down in the industrial sector, while the service sector has grown very fast, very quickly. So the growth was mainly driven by the growth in service sector, the overall growth. The opening up of the economy has led to the foreign direct investment or the FDI and foreign exchange reserves. Our foreign exchange reserves and FDI has increased immensely during opening up of Indian economy. Means the post 1991 period we are talking about. The foreign investment include FDI and foreign institutional investment, which is FII, has increased from about US dollar 100 million in 1990 to 91 to US dollar 400 billion in 2010-11. So you can see it's a 4-time increase. Okay, then let's moving forward. There has been increase in foreign exchange reserves from about US dollar 6 billion in 1990 to 91 to US dollar 300 billion in 11-12. So this is the huge increase in the foreign exchange reserves for India. In 2011, India was the seventh largest foreign exchange holder in the world. India is seen a successful exporter of auto parts engineering goods IT software and textiles in the reform period. Rising prices also have been kept under control. India, being a successful exporter, is able to kept its rising price under control. So this is the huge what we say achievement of India. Now there were some limitations of economic reforms, kind of failures. The first is neglect of agriculture, which was the deterioration in agriculture sector led to declining growth rate of agriculture. This root the root of this problem of rural distress that reached crisis in some parts of the country. Economic reforms could not able to benefit the agricultural sector because of these reasons. Public investment in agriculture sector, especially in infrastructure, including irrigation, power, roads, market linkages, and research and extension, has been reduced in the reform period because the focus was more on the industrial and service sector. The removal of fertilizer subsidy led to increase in the cost of product. Removal of minimum support price and lifting of quantitative restrictions have increased the threat of international competition to the Indian farmers. Export-oriented policy strategies in agriculture had been a shift from production for the domestic market towards production for the export market, focusing on cash crops in lieu of production of food grains. Now the demand was shifted to uh, production for the domestic products toward production for the export market. Demand shifted to the products which are needed to be export rather than the production of food grains. Now the focus shifted to the cash crops which are meant to be export. Then there was uneven growth in industrial sector. Industrial sector registered uneven growth during this period, means there was fluctuation because of decreasing demand of industrial products due to various reasons. The reasons were cheaper imports have decreased the demand of domestic industrial goods as economy was opened, so there was competition, there was substitutes available for industrial goods produced by Indian producers. So the cheap imports have decreased the demand for Indian products. There was inadequate investment in infrastructure facilities such as in power supply. A developing country like India still doesn't have access to developed countries' market because of high non-tariff barriers. Okay, so these were the reasons why industrial sector had the fluctuating growth rate. Then the next is disinvestment. Every year, the government fixes a target for disinvestment of PSEs. I have told you the full form of PSEs and PSUs, which is both the same things. So do let me know in the comment section what did I tell you? What is the full form of PSEs or PSUs? Do let me know in the comment section. I'll get to know if you are watching the video carefully. You would surely able to answer this. Okay. Then let's moving forward. I hope and I am expecting that you know the full form of this PSEs. For instance, in 1991 to 92, it was targeted to mobilize rupees 2500 crore through disinvestment. The government was able to mobilize 3040 crores more than the target. Okay, so government did the more disinvestment. Reforms and fiscal policies. In order to attract foreign investment, tax incentives are provided to foreign investors, which further reduce the scope for raising tax revenues. This has a negative impact on developmental and welfare expenditures. While India was trying to attract foreign investment, tax incentives are provided to them, but it reduced the scope for raising tax revenues. So it had a negative impact on our welfare expenditures because providing them tax incentives would lead to less tax collection, and expenditure was more already for the government, so there was deficit. Other reasons or the limitations were it led to the urban concentration of growth process. The inequality gap between urban and rural areas of India has widened through this process because the resources were concentrated to urban India. Also, this encouraged economic colonialism. It resulted in the spread of consumerism and it led to the cultural erosion. So these were the limitations of the reforms. The economic reforms happened during 1991. Okay, now let's conclude. Let's come to the conclusion. In conclusion, we can say the process of globalization through liberalization and privatization policies had produced positive as well as negative results. We have discussed both, and some scholars argue that globalization should be seen as an opportunity in terms of greater access to global markets, high technology, and increased possibility of large industries of developing countries to become important players in the international arena. So this is a one group of scholars argument. They see globalization as a positive for a country like India. On the contrary, the other group, the critics argue that globalization is a strategy of the developed countries to expand their markets in other countries. To them, this has compromised the welfare and identity of people belonging to poor countries. So they believe that globalization is something beneficial for only developed countries like USA, and for developing or the poor countries like India, it has compromised the welfare and identity of people belonging to our country. In Indian context, some studies have stated that crisis that erupted in early 1990s was basically an outcome of deep-rooted inequalities in Indian society, and economic reform policies initiated a response to crisis by the government, with externally advised policy package further aggravated the inequalities. Further, it has increased the income and quality of consumption of only high income groups, and the growth has been concentrated only in some select areas in service sectors such as telecommunication, information technology, finance, entertainment, travel and hospitality services, real estate and trade, rather than vital sectors such as agriculture and industry, which provide livelihoods to millions of people in the country. So this is said that in Indian context, this economic reforms, the new economic reform policy has concentrated the growth and resources to few sectors, to few areas belonging to urban community. It has not benefited the whole country large or at equal level. It has increased the income and quality of consumption for the high income groups, for the people who are already in the higher stratum of the income, people who are involved in that service sectors. Uh, on the other hand, it has led to a deterioration of sectors like agriculture and industry, which provides livelihood to millions of people in the country. So this is the viewpoint of a group of scholars who have studied the Indian context and this new economic policy. So guys, this is done. We have completed the third chapter here, and please do let me know in the comment section the full form of PSEs or the PSUs. I hope you have understood, and in case you have any doubt, please do let me know in the comment section. Please feel free to ask your doubts in case you like the video, you like the class. That too, please do let me know in the section. And in case you have any suggestions, you can mention it here. To download these notes PDFs, you can join our Telegram channel. Link is given in the description below. So guys, from here we will continue in the next class with the next chapter. Till then, keep revising. Stay tuned. Thank you. Don't forget to like, share, comment and subscribe to our channel. Okay, thank you.